Maid's daughter danced for a paralyzed child. The billionaire wept. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's dive into the story. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow over the sprawling mansion. It was an evening like any other at the prestigious Bellmore estate, known for its opulence and grandeur. The sprawling estate sat atop a hill, overlooking the city below, and its marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and lavish furniture spoke of immense wealth. But amidst all this luxury, in the far corner of the grand living room, there was a small, unnoticed figure. A young girl, no more than 10 years old, with bright eyes and a face that seemed too wise for her age. She was the daughter of the maid who worked for the Bellmore family, and she was used to being invisible. Her mother, Abigail, had worked tirelessly for the Bellmore family for years, keeping the house spotless, serving the guests, and maintaining the illusion of perfection. Abigail had always told her daughter to remain quiet, to stay out of sight, and to never draw attention to herself. But tonight, something was different. The little girl, whose name was Emily, had been watching the family with a mixture of curiosity and longing. She had always admired the way the Bellmores seemed to have it all, their wealth, their charm, their easy smiles. But she also noticed the cracks beneath the surface. There was something else that stood out to her, something she couldn't ignore. The young boy sitting in his wheelchair near the fireplace. His name was Ethan Bellmore, the only child of the billionaire, Robert Bellmore. Ethan had been paralyzed from the waist down after a tragic accident, and though he was surrounded by all the luxuries money could buy, there was a sadness in his eyes that no amount of wealth could fix. Emily had often watched him from afar, feeling a sense of pity for him. He was always alone, distant from the world around him. His father, Robert Bellmore, a successful billionaire businessman, had little time for him. Robert was more focused on expanding his empire than on his own son. His wife, Sarah, was constantly busy with social events and parties, leaving little attention for Ethan. The only real connection Ethan had was with his caretaker, a kind elderly woman who would occasionally spend time with him. But that was not enough. On this evening, as the party guests mingled and laughed, Emily stood silently in the corner, clutching her coat tightly around her. She knew better than to make any noise or attract attention. But something inside her stirred when she saw Ethan looking at her with those sad, lonely eyes. Without thinking, Emily walked over to him. She had no real reason to do so. It was just an impulse. She knelt down beside him and asked softly, "Do you want to see something?" Ethan looked up at her, confused, but nodded slowly. Emily, feeling the weight of the moment, started to gently sway her body to an imaginary rhythm. She wasn't sure why she did it, but it felt like the right thing to do. As she moved, she caught the attention of a few guests nearby, but no one said anything. They simply stared, unsure of what to make of the scene. Emily's dance, simple and pure, seemed to resonate with Ethan. His face softened, and a faint smile began to form on his lips. For the first time in what seemed like ages, the little boy felt a spark of joy. The room fell silent as everyone watched Emily's innocent performance, captivated by the unspoken connection between the two children. As Emily continued to dance, she could feel Ethan's gaze on her, and it gave her a strange sense of purpose. She wasn't just a maid's daughter in that moment. She was someone who could make a difference. As the dance came to an end, Emily's heart raced. She didn't expect this, didn't expect to be noticed, let alone make such an impact. But when she looked up, she saw something she hadn't anticipated. Robert Bellmore, the billionaire, was standing in the doorway, watching her intently. His expression was unreadable at first, but then a single tear fell from his eye. For the first time in years, Robert Bellmore wept. It wasn't for the loss of money or power. It wasn't for the stress of running his empire. It was because, for the first time, he saw something pure and genuine. He saw the power of a simple act of kindness, a moment of connection that transcended wealth, status, and privilege. The next day, the estate was eerily quiet, the echoes of the previous evening's events still hanging in the air. "Try." He cleared his throat, and Ethan glanced up, his face unreadable. "Ethan, Robert said softly, his voice shaking for reasons he couldn't quite explain. I'm sorry. I've been a bad father. Ethan raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised. What do you mean? He asked, his voice flat. Robert knelt down, something he had never done in his life. He looked his son in the eyes, really looked at him for the first time in years, and spoke from his heart. I've been so focused on business, on building wealth, that I forgot what really matters. I've neglected you, and I'm sorry for that. Ethan's expression softened. For the first time in a long while, he felt like his father was actually seeing him. Robert continued, his voice breaking slightly. I want to be there for you. I want to do more than just provide. I want to be your father. Ethan's eyes filled with emotion, and for the first time in years, he allowed himself to cry. It was a quiet, healing moment, one that would change the course of their relationship forever. Meanwhile, Emily had no idea of the storm her small act of kindness had set in motion. She had returned to her chores, feeling a sense of unease she couldn't explain. She wondered if her actions had been too bold, if she had crossed a line by dancing in front of the Bellmore family. But she pushed the thought aside, knowing that she had done what felt right in her heart. What she didn't know was that her dance had not only sparked a shift in Robert's relationship with his son, but it had also caught the attention of someone else, someone who would soon change her life forever. The days that followed brought an unexpected change to the Bellmore estate. Robert Bellmore, the powerful billionaire who once valued nothing more than his empire, found himself transformed. His relationship with Ethan, his son, had shifted in ways that Robert had never imagined. For the first time, Robert made an effort to spend time with Ethan. They went on walks together around the estate, with Robert listening to his son's hopes, dreams, and frustrations. Ethan opened up, speaking about how he longed for a connection with his father but had never felt seen. As the father and son spent more time together, their bond grew stronger. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Meanwhile, Emily, the maid's daughter, continued her work as usual, though she couldn't help but notice the subtle change in the atmosphere around her. People seemed kinder, more aware of each other. The family appeared to be more connected than ever before. Abigail, Emily's mother, noticed the change as well. One evening, after Emily had finished her chores, she was called to the main hall. When she entered, she saw Robert Bellmore waiting for her. Her heart raced with nervousness. She had done nothing wrong, but the presence of the billionaire in front of her felt intimidating. Robert smiled warmly as he approached her. Emily, he said softly, I want to thank you for what you did the other night. Your kindness has made a bigger impact than you could ever know. Emily stood frozen, unsure how to respond. I didn't mean to cause any trouble, she whispered, looking down. You didn't cause trouble, Robert said gently. You brought light into this house. You helped me see what I've been missing all these years. Emily's eyes widened. She had never expected this reaction, especially from someone so wealthy and important. Robert continued, I want to offer you something. I know that your family has worked hard for everything you have, and I want to help. How would you feel about coming to work here, not just as a maid's daughter, but as a part of this family? I think you deserve the chance to do something more, to have an opportunity. Emily could hardly believe what she was hearing. A part of her wanted to refuse, unsure if she truly belonged in this world of wealth and privilege. But another part of her, the part that had seen the isolation and sadness in Ethan's eyes, wanted to take a chance. I don't know what to say, Emily said, her voice trembling. Just think about it, Robert replied. There's no rush, and whatever you decide, you'll always have a place here. That evening, as Emily lay in bed, her mind raced. She had never imagined that something as small as a dance could change the course of her life. Her mother had always taught her to stay humble and never expect too much, but now, Emily had been given an opportunity to change everything. She thought about Ethan, about the kindness she had shown him, and how he had responded with a smile that had lit up a dark room. That was the moment that had made all the difference. But there was something else, something deep inside Emily that told her she couldn't just accept this offer for herself. She had to do it for her mother, for all the sacrifices Abigail had made. It was time for Emily to step into a new world, one where she could finally be seen for who she truly was. As the days passed, Emily pondered the decision Robert had offered her. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she also knew that it was a chance she couldn't let slip away. Her life, and the life of her family, was about to change in ways they could never have imagined. As the days turned into weeks, Emily found herself facing a decision that was harder than she had imagined. Robert Bellmore had given her a chance, an opportunity to change the course of her life, but the weight of that decision sat heavy on her shoulders. She had spent her whole life as the maid's daughter, blending into the background, and now she was being asked to step into a world she had never thought possible. The Bellmore family had offered her something no one in her position could ever dream of, a chance to be part of their world. But as much as Emily wanted to accept, a part of her hesitated. Her mother, Abigail, had always taught her to stay humble, to never ask for more than what was needed, and to work hard for everything. The life of luxury that Robert had shown her was foreign, and despite his kind offer, Emily wasn't sure if she truly belonged. Yet, there was another part of her that felt a deep responsibility to her mother, who had worked tirelessly for the Bellmores without ever asking for anything in return. Abigail had sacrificed so much for Emily's future, and now, Emily had the chance to change their lives forever. One quiet evening, as Emily sat by the window, looking out over the estate, her mother came to join her. Abigail had always been a hard woman to read, but tonight, her face was softened, as if she too understood the weight of Emily's decision. "I know you're thinking about it," Abigail said softly, sitting beside her daughter. Emily turned to her, surprise in her eyes. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Abigail smiled gently. "I see the way you look at him, Robert Bellmore, and I know he's offered you something big. But you don't have to take it if you don't want to. You've always had a choice, Emily." Emily felt a lump form in her throat. "But Mom, this is our chance. We've always struggled. Maybe it's time we didn't have to anymore." Abigail nodded, her eyes misting over. "I know, and I'm proud of you for thinking of us. But you have to ask yourself if this is truly your dream or if it's something you're doing for me." Emily swallowed hard. Her heart pounded in her chest as the words sank in. It was true. She had never considered what she truly wanted for herself. All her life, she had been taught to think about others, to put her family first. But now, she had to think about what her heart desired. The decision was more than just a job offer. It was about the kind of person she wanted to become. "I don't know, Mom," Emily admitted, her voice shaking. "I don't know if I belong in that world. I'm just a maid's daughter. I've never even been to a fancy party or worn a dress like those people. How can I walk into their world and not feel out of place?" Abigail took Emily's hand, her touch warm and comforting. "Emily, you've always been more than that. Don't let anyone tell you who you are or who you should be. You have a gift. You're kind, you're strong, and you have the ability to make people see the world differently. That's something money can't buy." Emily looked at her mother, seeing the love and hope in her eyes. "But I don't want to forget where I come from," Emily whispered. "You won't," Abigail reassured her. "This opportunity doesn't mean you have to forget who you are. It's just a chance to be seen for the amazing person you already are. And if you decide to take it, you'll still be my daughter, no matter what." The conversation lingered in the air as Emily pondered the path ahead. She knew that this was more than just about money or status. It was about her future, her identity, and her place in the world. As the days passed, Emily made her decision. She would take the chance, not because she wanted to escape her past, but because she wanted to build a future where she could make a difference. She would step into the world of the Bellmores, not to become one of them, but to make her own mark. With a deep breath, she walked into the living room where Robert Bellmore awaited her. She had made up her mind. "Mr. Bellmore," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion, "I've decided to accept your offer." Robert looked at her with a mixture of surprise and pride. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice soft. "Yes," Emily replied, her eyes shining with newfound determination. "I'm sure." The following days at the Bellmore estate were filled with a sense of anticipation and nervous energy. Emily had made her decision, and now it was time to step into a world she had only ever dreamed of. The transition from maid's daughter to someone with a place in this world of privilege was not going to be easy, but Emily was determined to prove that she belonged. She spent the first few weeks getting acclimated to the new environment, which was both overwhelming and exciting. Robert Bellmore welcomed her into his world, offering her a position that went beyond just cleaning or serving. He saw something in her that he knew was special. Robert didn't want her to just be another employee. He wanted her to be part of his family, part of the change he was trying to make in his own life. Every day, Emily worked side by side with the Bellmore staff, learning the ins and outs of the estate, and slowly starting to take on more responsibility. But it wasn't the work itself that challenged her. It was the constant pressure to fit in, to feel like she belonged in a world where she had once been invisible. There were moments when she doubted herself, when she wondered if she was truly capable of being a part of this life. But every time she faced those feelings, she thought back to the dance she had done for Ethan and the connection she had made with him. That moment reminded her of her strength, of her ability to make a difference, even in the smallest way. One afternoon, as Emily was walking through the garden, she was stopped by Ethan. He was sitting in his wheelchair by the fountain, his eyes focused on the water, lost in thought. "Emily," he said, his voice soft, "thank you for what you did for me." Emily was surprised. She hadn't expected Ethan to acknowledge her like this. She had always seen him as the quiet, distant boy, but today, he seemed different. I didn't do anything special," Emily replied, feeling shy. Ethan looked up at her, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her heart skip a beat. "You made me smile. No one has done that in a long time." Emily felt a wave of emotion wash over her. She hadn't realized how much her simple act of kindness had impacted Ethan. It was as if she had given him something he had been missing for so long: hope. "You deserve to be happy, Ethan," she said softly. "You don't have to be alone." Ethan smiled, and for the first time, it wasn't a sad, distant smile. It was genuine, and it lit up his entire face. Emily felt a warmth in her chest as she looked at him. In that moment, she realized that she wasn't just here to work. She was here to make a difference, to help Ethan find his happiness, and to build a relationship that was based on more than just wealth or status. As the days went by, Emily's bond with Ethan grew stronger. They spent more time together, talking, laughing, and enjoying each other's company. The Bellmore family noticed the change in Ethan. He was no longer the withdrawn, distant child he once was. He was more engaged, more alive, and it was all thanks to Emily. Robert, too, saw the change in his son, and it filled him with pride. He had never expected his son's connection with Emily to have such a profound impact. Robert saw his son's happiness, and it reminded him of what truly mattered in life. The success of his empire had always been his focus, but now, he saw that there was something far more important: family. As Robert watched Emily and Ethan together, he knew that he had made the right choice in bringing her into their world. She had not only changed his son's life, but she had also changed his own. Robert knew that he had a lot of work to do, but with Emily's help, he felt that he could begin to rebuild the relationships that had been broken for so long. As weeks passed, the bond between Emily and Ethan deepened, a connection that was growing stronger with each passing day. Robert Bellmore noticed this shift in his son, and it was beginning to soften his own heart, a heart that had long been hardened by years of ambition and a relentless pursuit of success. For the first time in years, Robert felt like he was part of something meaningful. He had started to understand that real success wasn't just about wealth or building an empire, but about the people you cared for and the relationships you nurtured. One evening, as Emily and Ethan sat together on the estate's sprawling lawn, the sun dipping below the horizon, Robert approached them. Ethan, once so distant and withdrawn, was laughing with Emily. His face was full of light, a stark contrast to the sad, distant child he had been before Emily entered their lives. Robert stood for a moment, watching them, feeling a sense of gratitude he had never truly experienced before. He cleared his throat softly, causing Ethan and Emily to turn towards him. "I've been thinking," Robert began, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "about the changes in this house. The changes in Ethan. And I realized something important." Ethan raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What's that, Dad?" he asked, his voice no longer tinged with bitterness, but with curiosity. Robert took a deep breath, stepping closer to them both. "I've spent so much of my life focused on work, on making money, on building my empire, that I forgot the most important thing: family. And it's because of Emily that I finally understand what I've been missing." Emily, who had always been quiet about her role in the family, felt a flush of warmth spread across her face. "I didn't do anything special," she said softly, her eyes downcast. "You've done more than you know," Robert replied. "Your kindness has brought this family back together in a way that no business deal or success ever could." Ethan looked up at his father, his eyes filled with something new: trust. "I've noticed the difference too," he said, his voice steady and clear. "I've never seen Dad so different. Happier, even." Robert smiled. A real smile, one that reached his eyes. "It's because of you, Ethan," he said. "You've made me realize that the things I thought mattered most were just distractions. And Emily, well, Emily is the one who brought that light back into this house." Emily felt a sense of pride, but also a deep humility. She never set out to change anyone's life, let alone the life of a billionaire. Yet here she was, standing at the center of it all, as a bridge between the Bellmore family's fractured past and the future they were now beginning to rebuild. Over the next few months, Emily's presence in the Bellmore estate became more than just that of an employee. She became a part of the family in every sense of the word. She worked with Robert on various philanthropic projects, and together, they began to focus not only on expanding the family's wealth, but on giving back to the community. Robert took a more active role in his son's life, spending weekends with Ethan, helping him with his hobbies, and even attending his doctor's appointments. The Bellmore family, once a symbol of privilege and cold ambition, was transforming into something warmer, something more human. Ethan's progress was evident. He had always struggled with his sense of worth, feeling overshadowed by his father's success. But Emily had shown him that his worth was never tied to wealth or status. It was his heart, his kindness, and his ability to care for others that made him special. One day, as Emily walked through the estate's garden, deep in thought, Robert approached her. He stopped in front of her, looking at her with deep gratitude. "You've changed everything, Emily," he said quietly. "You've given me back my family." Emily smiled, her heart full. "I'm just doing what feels right," she replied, her voice filled with warmth. "I think we all need to remember that sometimes the greatest wealth isn't in what we own, but in the people we love." Robert nodded, his eyes filled with emotion. "I think you're right. And I'm glad you're part of this family now. You're not just the maid's daughter anymore. You're family." As they stood together, the sunset casting a golden glow over the estate, Emily realized that she had found her place, not just in this luxurious world, but in the hearts of the people who mattered most. The transformation in the Bellmore estate was undeniable. Over the past few months, Robert Bellmore had undergone a dramatic shift, one that even surprised him. His focus had slowly turned from business deals to rebuilding the emotional fabric of his family, and Emily, the maid's daughter, had been at the center of it all. The once cold, silent mansion now buzzed with the warmth of real conversations, laughter, and a renewed sense of togetherness. But even as things changed, challenges still loomed. Robert knew he needed to make more changes, not just for his family, but for himself. He had been so caught up in his empire that he had neglected the most important aspects of life. Now, he was committed to living differently. One evening, as Emily and Ethan sat in the garden, enjoying the cool breeze, Robert approached them with a contemplative look on his face. "I've been thinking a lot about the future," Robert began, his voice carrying a weight that both Emily and Ethan immediately picked up on. "Not just my future, but all of our future." Ethan, who had grown increasingly comfortable with his father, looked up from the book he had been reading. "What do you mean, Dad?" he asked. Robert smiled faintly. "I've been thinking about how we can give back. You've both shown me that there's more to life than just what I've built with my hands. I've realized that, if I'm going to leave behind a legacy, it's not going to be measured by the size of my bank account or the buildings I've erected. It's going to be measured by the impact I've had on people's lives, including yours, Ethan." Ethan looked at his father, his eyes filled with emotion. "I never thought I'd hear you say that, Dad. But I'm glad you are." Robert nodded, a deep sense of satisfaction in his heart. "You've taught me more than you know, son." He turned to Emily, his expression softening. "And you, Emily, you've been the catalyst for all of this. Your kindness, your willingness to see beyond the surface, is what brought this family together. I don't think I can ever repay you for that." Emily, always humble, shook her head. "I just did what felt right. I'm glad I could help." Robert smiled. "You've done more than that. You've helped me become a better person." With a renewed sense of purpose, Robert set his sights on giving back to the community. He began to dedicate more of his time and resources to causes that mattered to him and his family. One of the first steps was starting a foundation that would focus on helping children with disabilities, providing them with the opportunities and care they deserved. Ethan, inspired by the changes in his father, took an active role in the foundation, excited to help others who were going through the same struggles he had faced. It wasn't just about charity. It was about creating lasting change, about making a difference in the lives of those who needed it most. As the foundation grew, so did the Bellmore family's bond. They found new ways to connect with each other and with the world around them. Robert was no longer just the distant billionaire he once was. He was a father, a mentor, and a philanthropist, committed to making the world a better place. And Emily, the girl who had once felt invisible, now stood at the heart of it all. Her small act of kindness, her dance for Ethan, had sparked a chain of events that changed everything. Emily knew that the journey wasn't over. There were still challenges ahead, but she felt ready to face them. She wasn't just the maid's daughter anymore. She was a part of something bigger. She was part of a family that valued love, compassion, and the power of change. And as the days went on, she realized that, sometimes, the smallest actions could have the biggest impact, and she was proud to be part of that story. As the months passed, the Bellmore family continued to thrive in ways they had never imagined. Robert Bellmore, once consumed by the endless pursuit of business and wealth, had found a new purpose in life: his family and the community. With Emily at his side, the foundation had become a beacon of hope, particularly for children with disabilities, something that had once been a personal struggle for Ethan. Robert, Ethan, and Emily worked together, traveling to various events and meeting families who had benefited from the foundation's support. It was clear that the impact they had made was beyond what anyone had expected. But even with all their progress, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that there was still much more to be done. As she walked through the halls of the estate one afternoon, she overheard a conversation between Robert and his assistant. They were discussing a new venture, a partnership with another billionaire philanthropist who was looking to collaborate with the Bellmore Foundation. Emily paused, feeling a knot form in her stomach. The world of the ultra-wealthy, though full of opportunity, still felt like a foreign land to her. She had come so far, but there were moments when she felt out of place, especially when surrounded by people who had lived this life all their own. Later that evening, as she sat in the garden with Ethan, she couldn't hold back the thoughts that had been swirling in her mind. "Do you ever feel like we don't belong in all of this?" she asked, her voice soft but carrying the weight of her uncertainty. Ethan, who had become more open with her over the months, glanced at her, a thoughtful look on his face. "Sometimes," he said, his voice steady. "But then I remember that we didn't get here by luck. We got here by being who we are, by making a difference in each other's lives. And that's all that matters." Emily smiled, appreciating Ethan's wisdom. It was true. She hadn't asked for this life, but somehow, it had found its way to her. And now, it was up to her to make the most of it. The next day, Robert invited Emily to a meeting with the philanthropist who had expressed interest in partnering with the Bellmore Foundation. The meeting was held at a luxurious office in the heart of the city. The man, a powerful figure in his own right, greeted them with a warm handshake and a smile. "I've heard so much about your work," the philanthropist said to Robert. "And I believe that together, we can do even more for the community. I'm ready to make this partnership happen." Emily sat quietly, observing the interaction between the two men. She had never been part of a high-stakes business deal before, and the whole experience felt overwhelming. But she couldn't deny the sense of purpose she felt as she watched them discuss how they could change lives together. At that moment, Robert turned to Emily and smiled. "You know, Emily," he said, his voice full of gratitude, "this all started with you. Without your compassion, we wouldn't be here." Emily felt a lump form in her throat. "I didn't do it alone," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "You've all been a part of it." Robert nodded, his eyes filled with pride. "That's the point. We're all part of something bigger now, and that's what makes it all worth it." As the meeting continued, Emily realized something important. She wasn't just the maid's daughter anymore. She was a key player in this new chapter of the Bellmore family's story. The foundation, the impact, and the lives they were changing. It wasn't about her past anymore. It was about what she was doing now, and what she would continue to do for the future. She wasn't just an outsider looking in. She was now part of the family, part of something that was bigger than herself. As the meeting wrapped up, and the two men shook hands, Emily felt a new sense of confidence within herself. She had found her place in this world, and it wasn't just because of her circumstances. It was because of the choices she had made, the kindness she had shown, and the way she had connected with the people who mattered most. That night, as she sat down with Robert and Ethan over dinner, she realized that this was just the beginning. The journey ahead would have its challenges, but she knew one thing for certain. She was ready for whatever came next. As time passed, the Bellmore family continued to flourish in ways that none of them had expected. The changes that Emily had helped bring about were not only evident in the way Ethan interacted with his father, but also in how Robert, once a driven and distant businessman, had come to value his family above all else. The Bellmore Foundation had grown, impacting more lives than they could have imagined, and it had become a symbol of what true success meant, a legacy built not on money, but on love, kindness, and community. Emily's place in the Bellmore family had become undeniable. She was no longer the maid's daughter, the invisible figure in the background. She was a vital part of the family, her voice and actions helping to shape the future. It was something she had never dreamed possible, but it had happened, and she realized that she hadn't just changed her own life. She had helped to transform the lives of everyone around her, especially Ethan. Ethan, once a quiet and withdrawn boy, had blossomed into someone confident and hopeful. He was no longer defined by his disability, but by his own strength and character. He had become actively involved in the foundation, working alongside his father and Emily to bring about meaningful change. He was a young man on a mission, determined to ensure that no child faced the same struggles he had. One evening, as the family gathered for dinner, Robert raised his glass in a toast. His eyes were filled with pride as he looked at Emily, Ethan, and the rest of the family. "To the future," he said, his voice full of gratitude. "To the family we've built together, and to the lives we're changing every day." Emily smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her. She had never imagined she would find a place like this, one where she was not just accepted, but celebrated for who she was. She had come so far from the days when she was simply the maid's daughter, struggling to fit in. Now, she was part of something bigger than herself, something that would leave a lasting impact on the world. As dinner continued, the conversation shifted to the future. Robert was already planning the next phase of the foundation's work, eager to expand their reach and help even more children. Emily knew that there would always be challenges ahead, but she also knew that they were ready to face them together. They were a family now, and nothing could break the bond they had formed. Later that night, Emily found herself standing outside, looking up at the stars. It was a clear night, and the vast sky seemed to stretch on forever. She thought about how much her life had changed in such a short time. A simple act of kindness, a dance for a paralyzed child, had set everything into motion. She had never intended to change the world, but somehow, she had done just that. And now, she was part of a family that valued her for who she was, not for where she came from. As she stood there, a sense of peace settled over her. She had found her place in the world, and it was more than she had ever imagined. With the love and support of Robert, Ethan, and the rest of the Bellmore family, Emily knew that anything was possible. The future was bright, and she was ready to face it, knowing that she had the power to make a difference, no matter where she came from.